Alright, in this lesson we'll explore the Python list. Now, in other programming languages this data type is often called an array, but basically the two terms are interchangeable. So what a list or an array is a data container that can store multiple values. The way we create it is by beginning with a pair of square brackets and then writing each one of our elements and separating each one of them with a comma. So an element or an item basically just represents one value within this larger list. So for example, if I wanted a list of 4 numbers, I can do 1, 5, 10, 20, just 4 totally random integers, and here we have a list of 4 integers. Keep in mind that the data types within a Python list do not have to be consistent, so I have integers here, but I could do something like a string at the end. That's going to work, and that's also actually allowed in the pandas objects that we're going to explore. But a generally good rule to follow for good data maintenance and storage is try to keep your data types consistent in whatever object you're working with. So in here in lists and later on in our pandas objects, I'm going to always push for having a consistent data type. It doesn't matter what that data type is. It can be strings or booleans or floating points or integers. You just want it to be consistent. That'll ensure that many operations run as efficiently as possible. So here we have a 4-item list. Let's assign it to a variable. I'm just going to call my variable lucky numbers. Use my equal sign to point it to this list. And now if I just take a look at lucky numbers, we can see that there's my 4 items. If I pass this variable into my Python built-in type function, we can see that it is in fact a Python list. An additional function that we can use that's built into Python is len, which is short for length. And if I pass a list into my len function, that's going to tell us the number of elements within my list. So in this case, I'm going to get 4. There are a total of 4 numbers being represented here. Let's create a couple more lists. I'm going to actually do it in this cell. Let's do a strings list. I'm going to call it names and just put a couple strings in here. Michael, Freddie, Jason. So this is a 3-item or a 3-element list or array with string values. And let's do another one. Let's do a variable called activated, just making this up on the spot, equals, and we'll do a list here of Boolean values. Let's do true, true, false, false, true. So now we have 3 different lists, each one storing a different data type. And whenever we create a list, each value in it is assigned what's called an index position. And an index position is basically counting where that item falls within the list. Now the caveat here is that the index starts counting at 0, not at 1 like we human beings do. So for example, if I take a look at this 5-item list here, this very first true gets an index position of 0. This second true gets an index position of 1. This false gets an index position of 2, and so on. So the final index position, in this case, is going to be 4 because we're starting at 0. The final index position is always going to be 1 less than the total number of items in that list. So for example, we have 5 items in this activated list. So our last index position will be true. Our last index position rather will be 4. This true will be represented by 4. Similarly, if I have something like this, we have 3 items in this names list, and my last one, which is Jason, is going to have an index position of 2. Michael is going to be 0, Freddie is going to be 1, Jason is going to be 2. All lists start counting at 0, and that's how the items are given their positions. In order to access a position within a list, the value rather at the position, we write the name of the list, for example, lucky numbers. Then we put a pair of square brackets, and within that square bracket, we write the index position that we want to access. So for example, if I were to locate this 10, that's going to be an index position of 2. The first item, which is 1, is going to have an index position of 0. This is going to have an index position of 1, and the 10 is going to have an index position of 2. So if I write 2 in here, that's going to give me that 10 value. Similarly, if I want to extract Jason, which is my 3rd element, which means it has an index position of 2, I could write names and then write 2, and that's going to get me Jason. If the index position that you put in does not exist, for example, I'm going to do names and do something crazy like 100, you're just going to get an error. You can see list index out of range basically means that it can't find it. As long as it's able to find that index position in here, which is always going to go up to 1 less than the length of the list, and I'll always start at 0. As long as it exists, it will extract that specific value. So that's a quick introduction to Python lists, and in the next lesson we'll do a quick review of Python dictionaries.